everybody. It's your girl, Miss Giselle, and this is the Black Table Conversations with Miss Giselle. And tonight we have the dopest revolutionary on the planet. And her name is Miss Dawn Alston Paige. With that said, say hey to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here tonight with Miss Giselle. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes. We have the dopest audience, FYI. Anyway, with that said, I'm so glad that we had the time to meet tonight and actually just talk about this beautiful movement, the reparations movement that just kind of birthed right out of the midst of COVID. And it's already been activated. It's just was slow coming, but we're really it's just kind of now it's on steroids and I love it. So with that said, let's dive in. Let's talk about what encouraged you to start focusing on reparations and getting into the history of Black America.
Well, what I actually learned about the reparations movement just when I was online looking at some political shows on YouTube. And I stumbled across the reparations movement, and I learned that Black Americans who are descended from chattel slavery were projected to fall to zero wealth by 2053, that we were more than 51% of the homeless, and essentially at the bottom of every wellness indicator, despite being here for hundreds of years, despite having contributed so much to this country, it just seems like we weren't getting any kind of return on all of the work that we had put in. And when I heard these statistics, I was, horrified and motivated to really do something about it. And also, key to reparations is understanding, your own lineage and where you come from and knowing who you are. So doing your genealogy, doing your family tree is a critical part of that. And so in doing that, you learn a lot about American history. You learn a lot about the debt that's owed. And one of the key things that I came to understand, particularly after reading From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century by William Darity and Kirsten A. Mullen, gives the case for reparations and explains the lineage wealth gap, which is the accumulated effects of slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and all of the various government policies that currently have Black Americans who are descended from American chattel slavery at a 20-to-1 racial or lineage wealth gap relative to white Americans. So for me, when I heard that information and understood that, I wanted to do something about it. And the reparations fight and becoming a reparationist was my way of getting involved.
Wow, well, that's amazing. I could say From Here to Equality definitely was my push, but I've known about since 2017 with the articles from Black, I think it was Black Enterprise and so many others, the Rio, so many articles came out and it was concerned. It was a huge alert. Even people The Voice was talking about it online and I was just what's happening? I had children that were young. So I'm I gotta do something. Even the small things, and it activated me also. Now, so I'm just glad that we found the movement and we can do what we
exactly.
Yes. So what was your push? What was your first first push in the reparations portion? We know what activated you.
Well, I think when I understood that reparations, direct cash payments were really the only way to close that lineage wealth gap, because we were so far behind, and the policies that are currently in place would take, some time to fix, and understanding, coming from a financial background, the modern monetary theory, which I won't go into here, but essentially, I think what we saw with COVID and how our government was able to find billions of dollars almost instantaneously to bail out Americans with COVID relief money, and how with so many other groups, like, for instance, Afghanistan refugees, the various policies that have been passed recently, just shows that the government cannot cry broke. That and the fact that the government is always able to find the money to do the things that it wants to do without really causing inflation. Let's look at the war in Afghanistan. For the last couple of decades, we really didn't see too much inflation as a direct result of that, and the government definitely found the funds to do that. So, understanding that, one, we can't say, oh, we have a deficit and it'll bankrupt the country. This country is what's called a sovereign. It has a sovereign monetary system, or fiat currency. Basically, it prints its own money. It owes itself. So essentially, it can, our government has the capacity to make Americans who are descended from chattel slavery whole. The fact that Dr. Darity and others have been able to quantify or give us an idea of what a down payment on reparations, what that would look like in terms of payments for descendants, also intrigued me, because I am a financial person and analytical. So everything made sense. The case for reparations, the ability to quantify it, the fact that we do have the ability to do our family trees and trace our lineage back to provide evidence that we are owed reparations, is what motivated me. And then I felt like I had skills that I could bring to the fight. I had been a Democratic organizer, a volunteer for over 13 years. And just doing that for all that time. And after a moment, the second administration of Obama, things just weren't getting better. I just got the sense that we as a people were going extinct. I literally felt that way, and had gotten to a point where I said, well, I guess I'll just have to make sure my line survives. And it was at that point I kind of stumbled across the ADOS movement, which is where I kind of started out. I will give that shout out to the base knowledge, but definitely moved on from that place. But the tenets, the basic foundation of the reparationist movement, what our case is, remains the same. So, but yeah, the fact that it's actually feasible, doable, and that we are deserved that is what motivated me. And so that's why I'm here.
It's definitely our inheritance. So I'm there with you also. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a quick break. Guys, during this break, don't forget to go to mishgiselle.com and go to the contest section so that you can enter your name in to win a prize. We have Box of Void book bags that we're giving away for the whole month of March, and the winner could be you. So saying that, see you in a couple of shakes.
But if a man doesn't have a job or an income, He has neither life nor liberty and the possibility for the pursuit of happiness.
When you think of your life, could it be a book? A lot of people have stories to tell, but they just don't know how to translate it to paper. This is why I created Area Justice Media Group, LLC. At Area Justice Media Group, we are entertainment. Instead of a script, we write our own stories, use our own imagination, and entertain readers all around the world. My name is Elizabeth Roberts, and I'm an author and a book publisher. Not only do I publish books, but I make them come to life on the TV screen. I have had one of my books featured on The Real. I have worked with numerous celebrities in the book and film industry. My book trailers / short films are now available on Roku, Amazon TV, Apple TV, and more. I have had the pleasure of writing a 2-hour feature film, and I have now helped over 30 authors get published with their books being distributed via Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and more. In addition, I publish all genres, so nobody will be left out. In traditional publishing, you have to hire an editor, copywriter, formatter, and cover designer. At Area Justice Media Group, I am your one-stop shop from publishing to getting your book on the TV screen. Welcome to the group.
And we are back, family, with Mrs. Dawn Alston Paige in the building. And we're just going to jump right back into the conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed those commercials and made it to my website. With that said, Dawn, let's get back into reparations. So, what does reparations actually look like for you? What would you say reparations are?
Well, reparationists are calling for direct cash, or should I say multi-generational direct cash payments, policies and protections, and tax exempt status. So reparations is actually an umbrella term, a political umbrella term. It's not just a check. Reparations is not a lottery payment. Reparations is everyone in your family who is eligible for reparations receiving a payment. Reparations includes land. There was a promise of 40 acres. There was also a federal policy, the 1862 Homestead Act, that Black Americans, recently emancipated slaves, known as American freedmen, which is what Black Americans who are emancipated slaves were designated after. And that is a history that we all need to revisit and understand that we actually have a federal classification, which is known as freedmen, or the American freedmen. We were the first freedmen. So reparations, as I said, is an umbrella term. We're not talking about one payment. We're talking about multiple payments. We're talking about land. Maybe that is acreage. Maybe it's in the form of a housing voucher of some type. But those details are, details that have to be worked out when we get to that point. Right now, we're trying to get the word out. Let the community know, do your family tree, know your family, the criteria for reparations, which of course is important. Who is the eligibility community? And we are using Dr. William Darity's criteria again, which says that we are looking for Black Americans who can trace a parent's lineage back to the 1870 U.S. Census. The 1870 U.S. Census is the first census that we as ex-slaves showed up by name on the federal census. Now, previous to that, you might find by being able to match a name, an age, and a location, and match it to what were known as slave schedules. So there's the 1850 and 1860 slave schedules that assist some people in finding that ancestor. But so again, the criteria would be that a descendant can trace one parent's lineage back to the 1870 US Census, where that ancestor is listed as Negro, Black, or mulatto, which is usually denoted by MU. But that's the first criteria. And then the second criteria is that you have self-identified as Negro, colored, Black, or African American at least 12 years prior to the start of any type of reparations study or program that comes into existence, because we do want to prevent other groups who are non-descendants from receiving reparations. So those are the criteria, and that is broadly what we're looking for, primarily looking for direct payments to descendants so that we can, determine for ourselves what we would like to do with our money, with our land, and not have it go to a third party or be funneled through a middleman or a middle organization, and then turned into some sort of universal policies where we don't receive the bulk of the benefit like we see with affirmative action. So we don't want our reparations turned into community development projects. So people often ask, what reparations are not. So they are not, they're not housing vouchers alone. They're not infrastructure alone. They're not reparations if they're not, if direct cash payments are not included, then that is not reparations. We deserve checks as well as free housing, health care, education, to live tax-free after 256 years of free labor, and then 155 plus years of redlining and Jim Crow, and just targeted, targeted policies to keep us from accumulating wealth. So,
as well as genocide. Absolutely.
Yeah, the cumulative effect, here we are, is genocide. True.
So, and going into that, I know, and that's what actually inspired you to create CBAC. So let's talk about CBAC and even your latest campaign. So, Concerned Black Americans. What was the inspiration? Well, we know what the inspiration was. But, yeah.
Well, Concerned Black American Citizens is born of my experience. Like I said, I've been a Democratic volunteer. I've done just about everything you could do as a volunteer. And then I got a job I got a job after working on the Tom Steyer campaign. And that's when I found out about the world of paid political organizers, and actually got training as a political organizer. And I was trained on how to train political organizers, to train volunteers to go out and, build local power bases. And so upon my departure from that position, or I should say I had already started Concerned Black American Citizens. I should rewind. Actually, Concerned Black American Citizens happened. It was inspired by the Comcast case, Byron Allen, when the 1866 Civil Rights Act was challenged. Byron Allen had charged discrimination against Comcast and keeping contracts from him because of his race. He had all sorts of evidence. We went to the Supreme Court. We were on the steps of the Supreme Court. That's when ADOS was out. And as the case went on, it turned out that Trump's DOJ was going to actually argue on behalf of Comcast against Byron Allen. Now, we weren't advocating for Byron Allen per se. We were advocating against the assault against the racial, trying to undermine using racial discrimination to use that to make Comcast and cable companies suffer the consequences for discriminating against him. And so what we did as Concerned Black Americans, myself, Kimberly Davis, Roland Connor, and some other ADOS people in the old days, we came together, Angela Nirvana, and came together and came up with a campaign to contact all of the social justice organizations like the NAACP. We contacted local organizations, imploring them to write an amicus brief, which is a letter of support for Byron Allen to push back against this, sort of chipping away at this civil rights, this very important Section 1981 of that act. So that's how Concerned Black Americans started, as a way for concerned Black American citizens to come together and, launch campaigns about things that we cared about, and to be able to use our collective voices. Now, that was in 2019. November 2019 is when it became more or less a formal organization of one or two people, to be real about it. So Concerned Black American Citizens evolved once I actually got some training as a real organizer. And I'm like, wow, I got something great here. I literally know how to duplicate myself to create more organizers. So that's when it clicked, Concerned Black American Citizens, sort of like color of change, where you go, it's like, I wanted to have like campaigns in a box. So people, Concerned Black American Citizens, issues that we highlighted, they could be able to come to CBAcusa.org, see what we have going on and participate. That was a goal. So once I got this training, then it became obvious that, I had a whole training process that now I could train reparationists in the formal methodologies of what political parties use to turn out the vote. So now our campaigns are the candidate, and we are using those same techniques that they use to get us Black folks to the polls to use those to amplify, to bring awareness to different issues, and to ultimately get us out to the polls to do to support the policies that we want. So, the mission right now is for us to educate voters, to train organizers, and to, educate Black Americans about the lineage wealth gap and about, doing their family tree. So that's it in a nutshell.
All right. No, we really appreciate that. Now, what's the latest campaign? When I heard it, I loved it, actually.
So our latest campaign is called, let me go ahead and share my screen. We're really excited about this.
And actually, you know what? I can share it for you. Don't even worry about it.
Oh, okay. So the latest campaign that we've launched is called Afro Pick. And you know how Black folks love acronyms. So of course, these are both acronyms. Afro, American Freedmen, Reparationists, out, or organizing, but out as in exiting the two-party system. And PIC is political ideology coordinating kit. So this is a voter toolkit for reparationists. Can you pull up that screen, Miss Giselle?
Yep, I have
Yeah.
it up right now. You can
Oh.
look at it from your thing. Don't even
Oh,
worry.
I see. Technology. My bad, audience.
Hilarious.
AfroPIC is reparationist exiting the two-party system. So we know that Black Americans have been voting religiously for the Democratic Party for the last 60 years. And we really, literally have seen an increase, an exacerbation in our the economic gap, the chasm. There's $100 trillion wealth gap between descendants of American chattel slavery and descendants of slaveholders or white America. So AfroPIC is a voting strategy for American freedmen and all Americans who support pure reparations. And when we say pure reparations, we mean direct cash payments, because without direct cash payments to each of us, those are not reparations. So AfroPIC is an explicit call to action, and it calls for us to exit the two-party system because of the failed reconstruction of the Black community, the failure to make us full citizens, and the failure to provide equal protection under the law. The cumulative effect of the government's policies against us have resulted in a genocide. If we look at our economic position, and we're not talking about those of us who are enjoying this podcast right now, we're talking about the bottom third of us, the underclass among us. And there is a class system. There's like a 200 to 1 intra-racial wealth gap within the Black community. So we're talking about those of us that are out there working hard, that don't have time to get out here and organize for themselves all the time, trying to be a voice for them. I don't think I can hear you.
No, you're good.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, that's who we're fighting for, and we're really calling out the alarm. Another aspect of AfroPIC is we going natural. Natural, again, a national alert to unite reparationists about liberation. So we need to get out here and let the people know, alert the people that there's a genocide underway, that our people are in danger of being exterminated and displaced, replaced, and disenfranchised by many factors, the least of which is the systemic poverty and generational poverty. And we saw the effects of that during COVID, when Black Americans descended from chattel slavery were dying at 3 times the rate. You know, that is a direct result of redlining, piling us on top of one another in environmentally hazardous areas. It is a direct result of our insured status, health insurance, meaning our overrepresentation in forward-facing positions. So all of those things were revealed by COVID, and also the government's ability to fix things if it has the political willpower. So AfroPIC is meant to stop handing out our vote for free and giving it away without any kind of tangibles or policies. So we wanted to give Black American voters a rationale in the event that they need to vote for a Republican, because we have to have permanent interests, not permanent friends and not permanent enemies. Reparationists, I want to read out who we will vote for. We'll vote for candidates who support Reconstruction, who agree that America must finish the job of freedmen Reconstruction and fight for the repair of Black Americans or American freedmen. Reparationists will support Hire America First candidates. candidates who support mandatory employer e-verify and are willing and happy to prioritize American workers, and even more specifically, Black American workers, because many of us don't appreciate, and maybe some in the DC area appreciate, the impact of immigration on employment prospects for Native Americans, native-born American citizens. Reparationists also support candidates who support immigration reform. And we, in particular, would like to see modifications in line with Barbara Jordan's 1997 immigration reform recommendations that would essentially cut our current immigration levels down to below 500,000 per year, and that includes refugees. Do you have any questions? Should I stop there before I go on?
That was good information. I mean, with the we got a lot. So with Afro, it sounds like that is a huge campaign, and I'm excited about it and like the benefits of it, because honestly, we're it's gonna overall help the entire country with yeah, it's just like just trying to get everything back in the loop, because if you keep like pouring everything out, eventually you'll have nothing. It's just going to be an empty glass. So I get it.
Right. It comes down to a matter of supply and demand. I want to tell your audience about another book, and you get it on audio. It's called Back of the Hiring Line by Roy Beck. And he just demonstrated how during a 40-year period of significantly reduced immigration, that Black men's real incomes increased 400%. And that on an income basis, not on a wealth basis, but on an income basis, 3 out of 4 of us went from 22% of the middle class to over 71%, meaning 3 out of 4 of us at the end of this 40-year period were making incomes that put us in the middle class. So sure, that's a narrow focus and really looking at numbers, but what it does is it shows how having excess labor enables the labor market to exercise its natural biases against us as a class of people who are descended from the formerly enslaved. And when you have a tight labor market, people are not so motivated to discriminate against you. But when your government is bringing in external groups to compete with you in the job market, it makes it easy to discriminate against Black Americans. And there is more than enough data that supports this unfortunate phenomenon that shows that Black Americans are being shed from the workforce. So it's that on top of the ongoing systemic poverty for approximately 40% of our population. And that poverty is growing. It's like a net that spreads. So those of us are doing well, that's great, but you still, obviously your resources are strapped because many of us help our families out. Many of us don't live on our own check alone. And if we were, we probably, most of us, a lot more of us would be doing better. But Afro-Pick is a way for us to break the hold that the Democratic Party has on the Black community without delivering on any policies. And I want to shout out Amaru Young from Kentucky U.S. Freedmen Coalition, who came up with this, he and I together. But he is definitely the lead on Afro-Pick. But we wanted to have something for organizers out there to share in the community, to give them something to talk about, a way to talk about mass immigration, which is not a topic that is popular or common in the Black community, which is unfortunate because we are harmed most by it. And so Afro-Pick is calling for all American voters to weaponize or withhold their vote from all politicians and side-eye elected officials who don't support this particular policy. And we currently have an executive order for a reparations commission on Biden's desk. So we want to withhold candidates who do not support, generally speaking, an executive order for a reparations commission. We don't want to support candidates who don't support mandatory E-Verify. We don't want to support people who don't want to reduce immigration, particularly immigration into areas where Black Americans live. We don't want to support, or we want to weaponize or vote for their opposition. We want to vote against candidates who do not prioritize American workers, who do not give special consideration for American freedmen or Black Americans descended from American chattel slavery. We want to withhold and weaponize our vote from candidates who do not support delineation of American freedmen for the ultimate purpose of economic set-asides and policies.
Yeah, we all do that. I mean, I'm just jumping in saying, I didn't even know, like in Baltimore, every single group has representation but us, every single group. And anything that's for us is always people of color. Not saying there's anything wrong with people of color, but we don't have anything specific for us. It'll have our name. It'll have our name, but then it's like when you go through the plan, it's like it's not specific to us.
And history shows that is a common occurrence. Affirmative action is actually used to discriminate against Black Americans, ironically enough. There's an example in Richmond, Virginia, at a time when it was 55% Black. There was a set aside of 30% of the contracts, but African Americans or Black Americans only received 1% of those contracts. And even when they tried to sue, they were told that they could not sue because it was on the basis of race, that they couldn't get those set-asides based on race, even though the reason they needed to be set aside was because of race, which then brings us back to another discussion and probably another show, but that is about our history, our legacy, our federal designation of American freedmen or freedmen. And I will draw your audience's attention to please check out Freedmen's Bureau and Freedmen's Bank. But that is a history that we have to reclaim, revisit as we move forward. But we also want to, just to finish up on our list of eight characteristics that we don't want in a politician. We don't want politicians who are not trying to get rid of the exception clause in the 13th Amendment. So sadly, slavery is still legal in America. And that is what that exception clause in the 13th Amendment is. The other two things, we don't want to support candidates who are not pro-nuclear family and who are not pro-Second Amendment. So those two last points, of course, are things that might raise eyebrows. And those last two things are two values that Black Americans traditionally hold true. You know, the two-parent household, the nuclear family, and protecting ourselves. We're not. It's not common for us to speak about it in public. We're that is associated and has been relegated to white conservatives, and we are not allowed to be proud of our families or our country, or believe in protecting our Second Amendment rights. And so what we're saying is that, yes, those are the candidates. And it's not that we don't embrace Black American LGBTQ plus community. It's that we want them to put their lineage first before their sexuality, and to join with this, join with us in this fight for reparations.
They
that
are. They are like, they'll tell you straight off the bat. You have down in South Carolina, what's the person running?
Marcel Dixon.
Yeah, Marcel Dixon, LGBTQ, stands out. And he's like, and it's not just him, it's like people across the country. And a lot of times we find out it's not always us also that's saying it. So it's like, because our people, it doesn't matter. It never mattered before, ever. It's never been a thing. Again, that's another show for another.
Right.
But let's see, where can everyone find you? Like, what's the website?
Well, they can find me on Twitter, Dawn Alston Paige, ALSTONPAIGE. They can go to cbacusa.org. I don't know. I keep a tight circle. I typically organize the organizers. I'm trying to get people trained up and out there. If you're interested, you can also send me an email at cbacusa@icloud.com if you are interested in becoming an organizer or getting involved in our campaigns. We also have another campaign, National Committee for the Office of Freedmen Affairs. I really encourage everyone to do your genealogy, study up on your freedmen history, but we need to reestablish, not just at the federal level, but we would like to get local administrative offices where we can delineate and enforce the laws on the books that are already there written for us. We want to have, we want to recreate or reestablish, a safety net for us, and we want to return on our tax dollars. So, yeah.
And just get our people back on track. I know people are tired of what's happening in the communities. We're tired of talking about stop the violence. We're tired of talking about let's feed the homeless. Why are they homeless when everyone else can come and get a whole check and just get housing? I've never seen anybody else in our projects. I don't know. And it's sad. Like, it's sad to see our people going through this. So I'm completely in support. I will definitely support in every way. And we're going to close on this. But before we go, I would like for you to leave something important, something to help lift up the next person. What food for thought or words of inspiration can you leave with the next person?
Well, I will say that reparations is definitely coming. It's already happening in several cities, and it's only going to be as good as our level of involvement. So I want to say that we have great things happening in California with AB 3121. Momentous decision is about to be made on that front, but reparations is definitely coming. Get your paperwork in order. As I said, the criteria. I buy Dr. Derry's book, From Here to Equality. But remember, here's a saying that my friend Amaru told me. He was out doing the work and was talking to a man out in the street who wasn't doing too well, and Amaru, an organizer, expressed a little fatigue and frustration with trying to get people on board and understand the reparations and the lineage wealth gap. And the man said to the organizer, he said, "Don't get tired. He said, we are the ancestors that our descendants are praying to right now. So remember that. We are the ancestors that our descendants are praying to, and they need us to get this right. We don't want our great-grandchildren to look up and be praying and wondering what were we doing. So the fight is now, the time is now, and I think we're ready. We got all the tools that we need. We just need to get more and more people on board. But reparations is coming, people. Get your paperwork in order. Talk to your elders. Get those names filled out in those boxes for reparations.
And save grandma's phone. Save your grandma's phone.
Save your grandmama's home. Fix up. Gentrify yourselves.
We already gentrified.
No, I'm saying we can gentrify ourselves.
Right.
Right.
So on that note, guys, this was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful conversation. So much information, and you'll be able to find some of her resources on our reparations all access section of the MissGiselle.com website. So if you want to reach out to Dawn Paige, you will be able to get her information there. On that note, family, peace, love, and reparations.
Peace and reparations.